Very exciting to have you down here, Jason.
Yep.
And I was struggling. Could you please pronounce your last name? for me?
Jakubowski.
Jakubowski.
Oh, you're
Okay.
kidding me, right?
I
I mean,
know.
you got a Polish name too. I mean, come on, Jakubowski.
Jakubowski. Thank you very much. Jason Jakubowski, Connecticut Foodshare. Thanks so much for coming down. Really, really appreciate it.
Yep. Happy to be here.
Lots going on with hunger in Connecticut, all over the place, all
Yeah.
over the world. We're going to jump into that in just a minute. But first, I want to talk to you about this little event that's coming up. Well, not a little event. It's kind of a larger event happening September 1st to the end of October with Blueback Health. It's called the Chamber, Monica, you might have to help me out, Chamber Wellness
Challenge.
Chamber Wellness Challenge.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Fifth annual.
Yeah, so you are now the beneficiary of any kind of funds they raise. Why don't you, how's this working for you? I mean, you excited about this?
Look, I mean, it's great. I mean, anytime we're so appreciative to all folks across the state of Connecticut. I mean, we're a nonprofit. The reason that we're able to keep doing what we're doing is because of the support of individuals, organizations, corporations, all sorts of philanthropic organizations as well. So when you have something like this in which you've got, Blueback Health, the CBIA, and 20 chambers of commerce from around the state of Connecticut getting together, they're doing something. First of all, that's health related. I mean, they're the challenge is to take 5,000 steps a day for the 61 days of September and October. So that's great. That's a win right there. But the fact that they're willing to donate the proceeds to charity. And a charity like ours is really, really special. And we recognize that anytime places do these types of fundraising activities, they have a choice in terms of where they can donate to. And the fact that they chose Connecticut Foodshare just means the world to us.
Yeah. No, I think that's terrific. And because I'm surprised, where we are just in 2024,
Yep.
there's still such a big need. So, now as I was kind of thinking about, over the past couple of days getting ready for this show, I was thinking about, since you've been doing this, has the need for food in the past few years gone up, gone down? Does it fluctuate?
Well, you've been to Disney World, haven't you? You've been on roller coasters before. I mean, it really is like a roller coaster ride.
Okay.
The short answer is the need has definitely gone up. I mean, obviously it goes up, it goes down. We saw, obviously, we were all affected by the pandemic in 2020, and that had a real major effect on our work and what we did. We saw record numbers of people, coming to our lines. In fact, you may remember, we weren't even able to do our in addition to our typical distributions, the state gave us Rensselaer Field, the home of the UConn football team, and for 18 months we distributed food to about more than 2,000 cars a day there on an emergency basis. So that was in addition to what we normally did. So those were record numbers. I think what people don't recognize, though, is that the number of people that are food insecure right now is about the same as there were at the peak of the pandemic. The difference is we're just in a very different economic, the post-pandemic economy. And it's hard for people to make ends meet. And I think that's one of the difficulties that people see. So right now, I mean, I can give you a definitive answer. There's 470,000 people in the state of Connecticut who are food insecure.
That's actually hard to believe.
It is hard to believe, but it is true. It is real. And it's 23% increase over last year. A lot of it's driven by inflation. A lot of it's driven by grocery prices. But you think about it, and why is it so hard to believe? Because we're the richest state in the country. And people look at Connecticut and they see a tremendous amount of wealth in Connecticut. And there is a tremendous amount of wealth in Connecticut. There's also a tremendous amount of poverty here in the state of Connecticut. And I think that's one of the things that people don't necessarily appreciate. Sometimes even within the same municipality. You look at a place like look at Hartford, for example, capital city. There are multi-million-dollar mansions in the city of Hartford. There are also some of the poorest zip codes in the entire country in the city of Hartford. And it's a very, geographically, it's a tiny little area. You look at Fairfield County, another example, a tremendous amount of wealth in many of the towns there, but you also have, major cities like Bridgeport, Stamford, Norwalk. So there's definitely a mix. And even within a lot of those affluent suburbs, there is real need. People look at me and they talk about, well, you probably don't have anything, you don't distribute a lot of food in Greenwich. Not true. Go to Neighbor to Neighbor Food Pantry down in Greenwich. They get food from us. They serve about 1,000 families in the richest town, in the richest state, in the richest country in the world. So this is reality. I mean, it's just reality.
Yeah. So what is? Let's break it down. What city do you distribute food to the most? What do you find? Or area or region? What do you find seems to have the most need?
Well, look, I mean, Bridgeport, the most amount of food is distributed to Bridgeport, which is not surprising. It is the largest town in the state of Connecticut.
Sure, that makes sense.
But I think here's one of the misnomers. People will often come up to us and say, "Hey, you must distribute a lot of food in Bridgeport, Hartford, New Haven." Absolutely, we definitely do. We also distribute a lot of food in Avon, Simsbury, Farmington, and also in some of the rural towns, Kent and Cornwall and Union. There's at least one family that's food insecure in each of the 169 towns here in the state of Connecticut. So there is no town that is immune. We serve the major cities, the urban centers, the major cities, the same way that we serve affluent suburbs and the same way that we serve very small rural towns. Those are the three types of places that make up Connecticut. And there's hunger in each of those three types of places. Obviously the number of people living in some of the smaller communities aren't as high as the number of people living in Bridgeport, New Haven, and Hartford. But it's still significant. And in fact, some of the issues that you have in some of the more rural areas has less to do with the number of people living there, more to do with the fact that there just may not be a grocery store for 45 minutes. And, that's the reality. The great thing about Connecticut is we really kind of have it all here.
Sure.
You want to live in a city, you can live in a city. You want to live in a suburb, you can live in a suburb. You want to live by the shore, you can live in the shore. You want to live in the woods, you can live in the woods. That's great. The downside is that, access to food becomes a real problem, even in a tiny state like ours.
How do you distribute? I know you have mobile distribution. We can talk about that in a minute. But generally, do you distribute to the food pantries and things like that? Do people come to you? I know you have a warehouse, Wallingford.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've been to that. I've been to one of your before was Foodshare. Anyway, we'll talk about the merger too. Yep. That happened a while back.
Yeah.
Where does the food? How do you distribute it?
So our main headquarters is in Wallingford, right off of 91. We have a satellite warehouse in Bridgeport. We have a satellite warehouse in Bloomfield, and so we operate out of those three different places. About 80% of our food, and we distribute about 44 million meals a year. About 80% of those meals are distributed through 600 pantries.
How many meals a year?
44 million.
44 million.
44
meals.
million.
Just Connecticut.
Just here in Connecticut. Just here in Connecticut.
How many? What's the population of Connecticut?
About 4 million.
Okay.
Yeah, about 4 million. So
okay.
Again, it's significant. And you look at how we distribute the meals. We have a network of about 600 partner programs. Those are mostly local pantries, local soup kitchens. They're separate 501c3s, but they partner with us. They have a partnership agreement with us in which they agree to store and distribute the food in accordance with our health and safety standards, and we agree to provide them with food, whether it be donated product or government product or purchased product. So 80% of the food that we distribute is distributed through that network of 600 agencies. And that's not easy. I mean, again, they're all separate.
Sure.
We don't own any of them. We have a team, a fantastic team of agency relations network representatives that are out there, working with those agencies on a daily basis, helping them through their trials and tribulations and figuring out how they can best serve their communities. So 80% of the food goes out in that way. The other 20%, you alluded to our mobile trucks before. We have 110 mobile food truck sites across the state of Connecticut. Our mobile trucks are refrigerated trucks. They're usually converted beverage trucks that have been either purchased for us or donated to us. We load them up at the beginning of the day with various different foods. There's usually a dairy product on there. There's several fruits and vegetables on there. There's usually a grain product on there. And they go to 110 different sites across the state of Connecticut in every 2-week cycle. The good thing about the mobile sites are that they're predictable. Wherever they are today at 10 a.m., they're going to be 2 weeks from today at 10 a.m. So you have there's some regularity for the people that are going to get food. The other thing is, if people don't, not everybody lives near a food pantry. Not everybody can get to a food pantry. This is one way that people can go to get food without having to go to one of those 600 local agencies. The other thing is it's a no questions asked distribution. I mean, if it's if you're willing to stand in line and wait out there for food, we're not sitting there giving you the third degree in order to find out, what exactly your needs are. This is we're a very trusting organization, and we acknowledge that when people are food insecure, sometimes they're at their lowest. I mean, and this isn't the time to be sitting there asking a million questions. If you're in need, you're in need, and we want to do what we can in order to help you. So about 80% of our food gets distributed through our agencies. About 20% of our food gets distributed through our own mobile trucks that we own and operate.
Is there any kind of limit when somebody comes to maybe the agencies or the food pantries? They may have some sort of, but your trucks specifically.
There is. I mean, people are allowed to usually go through the line once and collect once. We have to put a limit on what individuals can take, because otherwise, we have to be able to hit multiple mobile sites in a day, and even then, the amount of food is tight. Right now, people are. If you go to one of our mobile sites, you can probably walk away with about 20 pounds worth of food. And again, it's a mix of fruits, vegetables. If we get donated meat, if we get meat donated, we'll put those out in the mobile trucks. So you're walking away with about 20 pounds of food going to one of our mobile food distributions. But yes, there has to be a limit, because otherwise we would run out. As it is, we're not able to meet 100% of the need as it is. We're putting a bigger dent in the need than most other entities can, but there's still a tremendous amount of need out there.
Yeah. So you said, I know there's donations. People just they write you checks or whatever. They give you cash, and I'm assuming that cash is used not just for whatever you need to do to keep Connecticut Foodshare going, but you also use a chunk of that to buy food or from however that works. And then, I mean, I don't know. I don't operate a nonprofit, so I'm not sure how that works.
It's complex, and I think there's a lot of people that think that you just collect cans of food and you distribute cans of food. Most of the money that is donated to us, I mean, there's basically two pieces of our business. Mm-hmm. One is acquiring the actual food. The other is storing and distributing the food. And you need people to do. You need people. You need trucks. You need diesel fuel. You need refrigeration. We have a very large facility. We use a lot of electricity because we have a cooler, we have a freezer, we have all these different amenities that are necessary to store the food. So we do our best to get as much food donated to us. When you're donating money to Connecticut Foodshare, where that money is going is to the storage and distribution of that food. We also use money to buy food as well. Obviously, we definitely buy food. We buy produce. We try to buy culturally relevant foods. But most of what people are donating to us goes to the upkeep of those trucks. Like diesel fuel for the trucks, the drivers, and the staff that we have working in our warehouse. You come by in the middle of the day, it's a pretty busy warehouse. There's forklifts all over the place. It's a large warehouse. It's not easy being able to pick orders and being able to put together the food that every one of those agencies is ordering on a daily basis. So we have about 125 employees. It's a pretty major operation.
And there's food distribution happening every day, whether it be in your mobile trucks, whether it be driving to Greenwich or wherever you need to go.
Somewhere in Connecticut, there's food being distributed somewhere in Connecticut every day of the week. Whether it's our trucks, we usually run 6 days a week. We'll do the 5 weekdays, and then we have some Saturday mobiles. We're open as an entity, and we're delivering food to pantries usually Monday through Friday. But many of those pantries and soup kitchens are also open on Saturdays and Sundays. So there's always, I always say that there's always somewhere to go, somewhere in the state of Connecticut on any day of the week. I get that the weekend can be a little more difficult, but we try to be as flexible as we possibly can.
What if somebody's food insecure and they're stuck? Maybe they're elderly, they've had an accident. How does that all work? Are you able to deliver right to their house, or do you have partners that are able to bring them food? How does that work?
Yeah, so we don't deliver to individuals' houses, and it's the latter of what you said. It's we partner with a lot of different programs that do that. So, for example, we cannot be in the business of delivering. We deliver to pantries, and they will in turn deliver food to individuals' houses, apartments, etc. If we did direct food distribution like that, I'd probably need double the staff, double the trucks, and double the revenue.
And that's not really your concern. Is you're more like the wholesaler.
Yes,
absolutely.
Absolutely. So we don't do direct delivery ourselves, but many of our local pantries do.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're basically like the wholesaler. We're buying in bulk, we're collecting in bulk, we're distributing in bulk, and then they're able to find ways of getting food out there. It's a serious concern, though. I mean, we definitely saw this during the pandemic as well. Is the difficult thing about one of our mobile, I mean, the good thing about our mobile site is it's no questions asked and it's predictable. You know when it's gonna be there. The downside is you've got to be there at a certain place, physically be there at a certain place at a certain time. We acknowledge that there's a lot of people that are homebound or have different restrictions that they're not able to move out, that they're not able to go out to a certain distribution. So we try to work with our partners and our local pantries to figure out ways to reach those individuals.
Where's your food come from? You said you purchased some. You said the government. What are some other? I mean, do you have partnerships or relationships with grocery stores around the state? Like, how does that work?
Yes. I mean, the short answer there is yes. We definitely have great relationships with the grocery stores around the state. The bulk of our food is donated from the Connecticut grocery industry, from the Connecticut Food Association, and from its partners around the state, from wholesalers around the state. The reason that food banking works and the reason that food banking has worked in this country for the last 40 years is because the bulk of our product is donated. So, I mean, I can give you the geeky response with the numbers. We do 44 million meals a year. 26 million of those meals are donated by the Connecticut food industry, by the grocery industry, by wholesalers in Connecticut. About 14 million of those meals come from the federal government. I'd say about 3 million meals are actually purchased through our funds, and less than 1 million meals are paid for by the state government. So there is definitely a mix, but the super majority of what we're distributing is donated from the grocery stores. Stop and Shop is our number one donor.
That's my store.
Yeah,
that's where I go.
Big Y is number two. Costco, ShopRite, they're all Target.
Yeah.
Trader Joe's. I'm gonna get in trouble because I'm not meant because
I
shouldn't have started. I shouldn't have started listing all of them. But they're great. I mean, and not just at the local level, but at the corporate level as well. You take a company like Stop and Shop. Their CEO Gordon Reed is personally committed to food banks and food insecurity. So it's something that they believe in, not just at the local level at their stores. It's something that they believe in as a company, as an organization. So we're very grateful. One of the things that we saw during the pandemic, if you remember, grocery stores had a crisis those first couple of weeks. Their shelves were bare. So we went from having maybe 70% of our food donated from the grocery industry to zero overnight. Because they didn't have enough food for their own shelves. They certainly didn't have anything to donate. And we saw right there what the effect would be if all of a sudden we didn't get donations from the food industry. How we supplemented, of course, was we went into our reserves. We bought more food than we've ever bought before. The federal government flooded the system with food, flooded the system with money to buy food, so they were able to make up for it. But we could not do what we do without the grocery stores and without the Connecticut Food Association and their members here in the state of Connecticut. We just couldn't. We could never purchase that much food.
Right on. And that's a little bit of a scary thought. Yeah, that we were in a little bit of a panic maybe on your end at the beginning of the pandemic.
Well, it's also one of the reasons. I mean, we're I would say people donate money to us, and we believe in being good fiscal stewards of that money. We try to have as little overhead as possible. It doesn't take us as much to raise a dollar as it might take other nonprofits. One of the things we do, and it's tough, we keep 9 months of operating expenses in reserves.
That's a lot.
And it's a lot, and that's more than we're required, but we're required to do that. And we saw, and usually, I've been in this business for 7 years. I've worked in nonprofits pretty much my whole career. The rainy day fund. Yeah, you're not going to use it. You're not going to use it. You're not going to use it. This is silly. We saw firsthand in March of 2020. I mean, thank God we had 9 months of reserves, because we needed it, and we blew through it quickly. So people will sometimes say to us, why do you keep so much in reserves? For the same reason a hospital does. We're an emergency service provider.
Yeah.
I got no idea when the next emergency is coming.
Yeah.
It's
essential. If anything else is, if nothing else is essential, food is essential.
Absolutely, and we saw that firsthand during the pandemic. So it is sometimes it's tough to know that we have some cash that we're not able to use, but we've been through an emergency and it's necessary. So we are lucky that we're in a sustainable atmosphere by which we can keep that money in reserve for the next emergency. And by the way, maybe it won't come this year. Hopefully it doesn't come in our lifetimes again.
Yeah.
There will be another emergency.
Eventually.
I mean, there definitely will be. And when you get to a point in which the economy is such that the grocery stores aren't able to donate those large amounts of food, or the federal government isn't able to supply the large amounts of food, it's going to be all on our donors.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate. This is Connecticut, and the people of Connecticut are so generous, and they kept us afloat during the pandemic. We never would have made it without them.
What's if you have these numbers, just kind of curious, before I move on to something else, I want to ask you about what's the figure for a year for private donations, like the families or individuals just writing a check to Connecticut Foodshare?
So we raise about $21 million a year outside of what we get from the federal government. And
that's a good amount of money.
The small amount we get from the state government. It is. It's a great. It's a terrific. It's a solid amount for an organization like ours. About 65% of those funds come from individuals, just people like you and me who are at home listening to a podcast, watching TV, and saying, you know what, I want to give $100 to charity, and I want it to go somewhere that I know the money's going to be well spent. What's more important than making sure people, seniors, kids are fed? I'm going to write a check to Connecticut Foodshare. So 65% of our money comes from individuals.
That's great.
The balance comes from corporations. We have a lot of very generous corporations. Again, Stop and Shop is our number one donor on the monetary side too, in addition to food.
Oh, get out. So they donate monetarily as well.
They donate monetarily as well. They typically will end up giving us more than $500,000 a year.
Okay.
You go to their stores and they'll do the roundup campaigns with their customers and stuff.
Yep,
so they're very generous, but we get a lot of support from corporations. Bank of America, large corporate supporter of ours. The Hartford, just many across the state of Connecticut, and then obviously the rest of that, the rest of the amount comes from philanthropic organizations, community foundations, local United Ways. We partner with just about all of them.
Okay.
And they're very supportive. Many of the foundations, they help on both operating and capital expenses. So, for example, we just bought, and they'll be ready. We'll be unveiling them in the next month because it takes a long time for them to build. Apparently, I don't build the trucks. I just want everybody to know that. We have 2 new mobile trucks. One was donated by the Chase Family Foundation, and one was donated by the Cohen Family Foundation. Okay. And we're very supportive. And those are 2. The Chase family, obviously, extremely philanthropic family in the Hartford area that has been supporting us forever. And obviously, the Cohen family, own the New York Mets. I'm a Yankee fan, so I'm not wearing a Mets hat when we cut the ribbon on the truck, but we're very appreciative to them. Those are family foundations. So that's private philanthropy stepping up to the plate. and helping us out. So we're appreciative. We do get some money from the federal government. We get a little bit of money from the state government, but most of that goes directly to purchasing food. All the money we get from the state, the only thing we can do with that money is purchase food. We can't use it on salaries. We can't use it on benefits. Can't use it on diesel fuel. It's just purchasing food, and we're always hoping to increase that.
Makes budgeting easier.
It does, yes. No, it definitely it definitely does. It also gives taxpayers the comfort in knowing that their money is being spent on something that is directly tangible. Like I said, I mean, there's somebody in need in all 169 towns here in Connecticut. So, I mean, there's not a legislative district or a corner of the state that is untouched by that. And I think it's just it's good to know that everybody's got a little bit of a piece of the pie. We'd like to increase the pie.
Of course.
We've been working with the state on that for the last couple of years. We had a bill in the last legislative session. We're hopeful to have one again in the upcoming legislative session, bipartisan, because there's no Democrat or Republican way to solve hunger.
Sure.
I think everybody's recognized at the state capitol that whether you're in a liberal district or a conservative district or a Democratic district or Republican district, you got a food pantry. And there's people that need food. Hunger doesn't care who you voted for in the last election. Hunger doesn't care what town you lived in. Hunger doesn't care what your ideology is. And we're one of those things. It's a basic need. And we finally, have recognized as a state that, this is something that we need to work on together.
Food. Now, over the years, there's been all sorts of. There's the pyramid chart of what's most grains and dairy and meat and all, and it's changed. And
the four food groups. When we were kids, the four food groups.
Yeah, yes. And now there's this organic, and there's all and fats were no good, and now they're okay. Sugar obviously has never been good, but so how is that affected, changed your food distribution policies and all that kind of stuff throughout the years?
It has definitely changed the food distribution policies, not just at Connecticut Foodshare, but at, quite frankly, most of the Feeding America food banks across the country. When food banking started about 40 years ago, I always say that the approach was, let's amass as much edible product as we can get and distribute as much edible product as we can get. The edible product could be Skittles, it could be Twinkies, it could be anything, because the old mantra was anything's better than nothing.
Okay.
I reject that. We now reject that as an industry. We recognize that, no, the people that we serve, just because they're poor and just because they may not know where their next paycheck or their next meal is coming from, doesn't mean they don't have dignity and that they don't deserve dignity. And while Skittles and Twinkies and junk food are cheap, they're not necessarily dignified, and they're certainly not nutritious. So what we've recognized in the last several years is a need to be proactive. We're not telling people what they can or cannot eat, but we are being intentional in terms of what we are sourcing and what we are taking and what we're giving out. So we now use a system called SWAP, Supporting Wellness at Pantries. It's a green, yellow, red, like a stoplight type system, in which we let people know this is a green food. Go ahead and eat it ad infinitum. This is a yellow food, something you probably want to have sometimes. And then this is a red food. You should probably eat it sparingly. We're still not, what I like about the system is that it gives individuals choice.
Sure.
It gives them information about the nutritional content of what of what we're providing, but it also ultimately gives them choice. If you still want to eat red foods, you can still eat red foods. One of the things that we don't do anymore is, before 20 years ago, if somebody called up and said, "Yeah, I got a truckload of Twinkies I want to donate," they'd say, "Sure."
You're going to get in trouble with Hostess, but anyway, go ahead.
Look, I mean, it's all right. I mean, I like a Twinkie just like anybody else, but now it's, I'm not going to take a truckload of chips or something like that. I mean, it's just not something, If it gets donated to us along with some other product that we want, soda, same thing. Same thing with soda. We'll take a water donation. We love water, and water's great, but we're not going out of our way to sit there and, take donor dollars and say, yeah, we're going to go out and purchase a trailer load of Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
It may still get donated to us, but we're not going to be proactive in terms of trying to acquire it. The nutritional piece is a real game changer in our industry, because I think people have made that determination that, a bag of chips is cheaper than a bushel of apples, but a bushel of apples is significantly more nutritious. People see this relationship between hunger and health. And I think it's it's been a real wake-up call the last 10 years or so here in America, and people recognizing that you can still eat whatever you want, but you probably got to pay a little more attention to the nutritious value. So we're no longer about just amassing anything that's edible. We definitely put an emphasis and a priority on nutritious product. The problem with nutritious products are they tend to be perishable, and it's a lot more. Sure. It's a lot harder to store, and it's a lot harder for us to get out to our agencies, because you can only store as much as you've got room for. So if you're one of our local pantries and you've got a little teeny tiny refrigerator, we can only give you enough apples to put in that refrigerator. What we did start doing a couple of years ago is we created a grant program for our agencies where they could apply to us and get a grant for, larger capital things like larger refrigerators, larger freezers. So now we can increase their capacity. Capacity building among our network is key. And we know that if they can take and store more nutritious food, they're going to be in a position in which they can also distribute more nutritious food.
Do you find that the people that are getting the food, they appreciate the fruits and the vegetables?
Oh, absolutely.
And then are they still looking for like the chips and the junk, Fruit Loops or whatever?
People are human. I think everybody likes different things. People, and by the way, it's not necessarily mutually exclusive. Somebody who likes, oranges and apples may also like frozen pizza. That's
Sure.
That's all together possible. And there's also things that, I'm a big fan of Raisin Bran. Love Raisin Bran. I know there's a lot of sugar in Raisin Bran, but I like Raisin Bran.
Sure.
I don't think that makes me an unhealthy person per se. But people do get excited when they see the fruits and the vegetables, because it's not something that they've always been used to seeing. The downside to what we do is there's not always repetition. You walk into a grocery store, you'll always be able to find an apple somewhere, or you'll find grapes somewhere, you'll find bananas somewhere. Because we're so dependent upon donations, one week we may have bananas, one week we may have apples, one week we may not, one week we may have Raisin Bran, the next week we might have Fruit Loop. It could be any difference. But that's also just, that comes with the territory when you're basing your business on food donations the way that we do.
As far as like people that come to the facilities, are these been doing this for a long time? Is it maybe just a one-off thing? Is it just a really big mix? I don't know, you personally aren't involved in probably going out, and I'm sure you visit, your different partnerships from time to time.
Those are my favorite days, going out there and
excellent.
being able to visit.
Is this an ongoing problem? Well, let me streamline the question. Is this an ongoing problem for families, or do you find that most families is a temporary problem?
Both.
Okay.
I would say both. There is a sector of people that we serve that tend to be, that tend to come back week after week, month after month, and we recognize that. There are also a lot of people that we serve, though, that it is a temporary issue. Look at the pandemic, for example. We did a survey at Rentschler Field when we were distributing the emergency food out there. At the beginning of the pandemic, 73% of the cars that were the families that were coming to Rentschler Field had never used our services before. So this was a temporary thing to them. They were gainfully employed. Maybe they had 5, maybe 6-figure-a-year jobs, and due to no fault of their own, the rug got pulled out from under them. And they realized eventually, like most people do, that most of us are a paycheck or two away from not knowing where their next meal is coming from. So that is reality. And we hear a lot of those stories. We see a lot of those stories. People that, again, no fault of their own. Now maybe they have a diagnosis of something that they have to pay medical bills, or they don't have money to buy groceries. A lot of different stories like that. We've heard stories of people who, they're sending their kid to college and they want to pay for books and want to pay for, their kids' college tuition, and that means they don't have enough money for food. So there are definitely some folks who are temporary. There's also, we'd be lying if we said there wasn't systemic hunger, not only here in Connecticut, but across the country and, quite frankly, across the world. I mean, hunger's been around for thousands of years. Go look back to the Old Testament. I mean, people have been dealing with hunger and feeding the hungry for thousands of years. So to say that, I would be lying if I said that there wasn't some percentage of the population for which it's systemic. But there is also definitely a chunk of the people we serve, a large number of the people that we serve, for whom it is temporary. And that's what we want to be. We don't want to be a permanent way of life. We shouldn't be a permanent way of life. We're there to help people in times of need.
Do you think there's an end to people being hungry? Do you think there's a way to make Connecticut Foodshare not be needed any longer?
One of the things that we used to say is, we're here to put ourselves out of business. That's our goal. We'd love to put ourselves out of business. And by the way, we would. We definitely would. I get asked a question like that, or some version of that question all the time, and I always have two answers. I mean, the optimist in me.
I thought it was a unique question.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm sure it's not.
But the optimist in me, and I tend to be an optimist at heart, looks at the situation and looks at the conundrum and is like, you know what? Working together, if government steps up to the plate and citizens step up to the plate and donors step up to the plate and food systems step up to the plate, yes, we can definitely find a way of licking this for good. There's no problem that exists that we can't solve. So that's the optimist in me. The realist in me looks at what I just mentioned to you a couple minutes ago, in that you look at the Old Testament from thousands of years ago. Societies, whether it be in America or in any other part of the world, have dealt with this issue of hunger, and they still haven't been able to find a way to completely eradicate it. We've eradicated polio, but we haven't eradicated hunger, and something like that can be very frustrating. I will say this, and people always ask, what's the magic bullet? First of all, like most things, there's not a magic bullet. There's no magic wand. But if you want to solve hunger in the United States, it has to start in the halls of Congress. It has to start in the halls of government. We make a choice. There's enough food in the United States to feed everybody. The problem is access to that food and distribution of that food. How can we give people the means by which to go about accessing that food? People ask me, what's the easiest solution? I say, there is no snap your finger solution, but you want to start somewhere, double the SNAP benefit, triple the number of people that are eligible for SNAP. SNAP is a government program that has proven to work time and time again. For every meal we distribute at the food bank, SNAP is able to distribute 9 or 10 meals. And it gives people the dignity of going to the grocery stores and buying their own food and making their own choices. It also is a great economic stimulus in the localities in which the grocery stores are, because it's people spending money in those municipalities. So right now, I mean, the SNAP benefit's about $40 a week. I can't eat on $40 a week. I don't know if you can.
Especially not nowadays.
Not nowadays. So it's twofold. It's increasing the benefit, but also increasing the number of people for whom it's eligible. The other thing the government can do is obviously, continue to look at, the way that it deals with, taxation and spending. The child tax credit is something that the Congress put in place during the pandemic as a emergency measure. If you've got kids, there was a tax credit that everybody got if you had children. Quite frankly, I'm not an economist, but I could tell you from being there on the front lines during the pandemic, it saved our economy during the pandemic. Those extra dollars that the government was putting in people's pockets who had children. The child tax credit is a proven winner. It worked during the pandemic. Something like that could really, really, really go a long way towards helping to solve hunger. So the optimist in me stays optimistic. We're going to keep doing what we do. I think the realist in me knows that, there's as long as there's multiple different viewpoints. I mean, it's an issue that's existed for thousands of years. It breaks my heart that it will probably exist for thousands more, but this is what we have. This is human society. I mean, this is where we're at.
I don't have any statistics on this or know too much about it or anything like that, but every once in a while, social media and other news articles and things like that, the subject comes up of food waste, not necessarily of people buying food and throwing it away. That's a whole different issue. But I'm talking about the food waste from either growers or people, wholesalers or anything like that, where if a carrot or something isn't quite the right shape or doesn't look right or whatever the situation may be, it gets tossed or I don't know what they do with it. So do you think we can utilize some of that disfigured food, however you want to call it, to help solve the problem a little bit?
Of course, and there's always ways of doing that. I think a couple of things. Obviously, we're completely against food waste. One of the things that we recognize is that it is an environmental issue, in addition to a societal issue, and we try to do our part in order to keep whatever we can in the ecosystem. For example, you go to our warehouse, food that gets donated to us needs to be sorted by a human, because not every apple in the bushel is perfect. I mean, there are some that are rotten, and we're not going to give that to somebody to eat. We're just not. They have dignity. They don't deserve to eat a rotten apple. So what we do is we put those in a bin, and we donate those to a local pig farmer or to a variety of local pig farmers. So we try to keep, and then anything that doesn't go to the pig farmer goes to the biodigester in Southington. So we keep everything in the ecosystem that we possibly can. What you're talking about is like say the grocery store level.
Sure.
Grocery stores have gotten significantly more sophisticated in terms of what they have been able to utilize, and it doesn't always help us at the food banks, but it is nice to know that they've been able to utilize it. So take the carrot. You take a carrot. 5 years ago, if there was a carrot and there was a bruise on the carrot, they put the carrot in a bin and would get it donated to the food bank. Great. Now there's a bruise on a carrot. They cut off the bruise. They chop up the carrot. They put it in one of those vegetable platters that they sell to you for $25. So the stores themselves have gotten more sophisticated in what they are in what they are doing in terms of what they are using. So we absolutely see ourselves as a part of the continuum of entities and people that can work on, how do we solve this environmental problem of food waste. Where I do draw the line is, the idea that food scraps that you wouldn't serve to yourself or to somebody else gets served to the people that we serve.
Sure.
And that has been suggested to us before, is that, well, it may not be good, but it's at least edible. I don't buy that. I don't agree with that. The people that we serve deserve dignity. The people that we serve are having tough times. The people that we serve are in a position in which they're just trying to make ends meet and they're struggling through life. Just because something, if it's not edible, if it's not something that you would eat, it's not something we're going to put in front of somebody.
What do you mean by like food scraps? Like from not something like I had a dinner and I didn't finish it. I mean,
there are some people that and again, this is
because that's unacceptable.
It's a philosophical argument. There are some people that would argue that in that case somebody could eat that food. That's where we draw the line, and I think that's the. I
think that's a good line to draw.
It's and I'm unapologetic about it. We would do everything we can to help it solve the environmental issue. But it's not going to be at the expense of the people that we serve.
Now, I did have a swim coach when I went to school and in college that when we were traveling and the team sat down for a meal and the table next to us left, he would go over there but that's a whole different situation.
Yeah, no, that's yeah.
So I don't know if he was getting paid enough. I don't know what the situation was there, but anyway, that's a whole different thing. So we got connected through, and I just forgot his name. Al Marino. Yes.
How could you forget Al Marino?
Yeah, I don't know.
The legendary Al Marino. He's a great part of the Connecticut Foodshare family.
Al's terrific. I knew Al when there was I hope I didn't get this wrong. Connecticut Food Bank.
There was Connecticut Food Bank and Foodshare.
Foodshare.
Two food banks.
And it's been years now. And
almost 4 years.
What was the sort of whatever that word is? Why
the
did
impetus
you, the impetus? That's what I'm looking for. Of the merger.
Why
did that happen? Why did you feel both you and Foodshare that was good?
Well, I think that a couple of things, and I give all the credit to our board of directors because they're the ones that had a vision. And you live in Connecticut just like I do. We're the land of steady habits. Everybody does their own thing. We got the 169 separate towns. Nobody likes to change. And so over the years, what you ended up happening was there was Foodshare, which basically served the northern part of the state, and Connecticut Food Bank that served the lower part of the state. They were both parts of the Feeding America network. They just served two different territories. And in the early days of the pandemic, finally after years of going back and forth, the two boards got together at the urging of some folks in Governor Lamont's office, and finally said, "This is crazy. We do the same exact thing. We have the same exact mission. Why don't we find a way of coming together and cutting some costs that can then be, reinvested into the organization?" And I give those board members all the credit in the world because there's a lot of nonprofit boards and certainly a lot of elected boards in this state that would never have the guts to do that because, they sit there with their arms crossed and say, "No, we've done it this way for 40 years. This is how we're always going to do it."
Right.
So the true north in that, and I always Beth Henry was our board chair, and she always said that the true north of that whole process as we went through it was we were going to put egos aside. Mm-hmm. There was going to be no winners and losers, and we were going to do what's in the best interest of the people of Connecticut. That was going to be the one and only criteria that was going to decide what we did. And 4 years later, nothing's without hiccups, nothing's without ups and downs. It's never easy taking two organizational cultures and merging them together. Although we just got named a top workplace for the 7th year in a row, so we must have done something right on that. So there's always some growing pains, but we now have one staff, one core of volunteers, one agency network, and most importantly, somebody who lives in Berlin isn't getting a different level of service than somebody who lived one town over in Meriden. You're not getting different things depending upon where you live. Everybody is, we're looking at addressing this statewide. One of the difficulties of it is we still do live in Connecticut with 169 towns, and you have a lot of local first selectmen and state legislators and people like that who will tell you, yeah, I'm only interested in solving hunger. I'm interested in my town. I get it. I was a city councilman in New Britain back in my early 20s. I understand caring about your community and caring about the people that you represent. But I've been saying these last couple of years since we've merged, we are not trying to solve hunger 169 times here in Connecticut. We're trying to solve it once. Sure. And sometimes that makes for difficult decisions. Sometimes that means that, wait a second, we might have to pull a mobile site from a town that has a lot of resources and bring it to a place that doesn't have a lot of resources. And I get it. Sometimes, local people could be upset about that. But we've got to start thinking about ourselves as one state. And that was the impetus of bringing the groups together. We came up with this with a new brand, with a new name, Connecticut Foodshare, and it's been great. And I don't think any of us have any regrets about it. And we have a cohesive board. We have a cohesive staff. I always say, and actually we've been used as a model for other food banks across the country that have been interested in merging.
How did the staff work? So you just took those two,
we
and
just threw them all in the same place.
So nobody was. I'm guessing that nobody was really let go because you didn't merge to downsize. You merged to create better services.
Correct. Nobody was let go. There were certainly situations in which there were two people doing the same job, and you had to figure out what's the best use and where do you put people. We accomplished the merger with 0 layoffs, which was great. There were definitely some people who self-selected out. Sure. There were some people who said, "Well, geez, I liked my 5-minute commute from the Bloomfield building. Now I'm gonna be based out of Wallingford. I don't want to drive the extra 25 minutes. That's okay. That's fine. I mean, that happens. I mean, we were okay with that. The first couple months are tough because it's like taking. I always say it would have been like everybody wearing a Yankee or Red Sox shirt to work, or wear a Trump or Harris shirt, to work. Everybody wear, and you could see, okay, these people are on this side, these people are on this side. To me, the best compliment that I can give our board and I can give our staff is that 3.5 years later, if you walked in the door, you'd have no idea who came from which legacy organization. And a lot of that was intentional, and a lot of that was driven. We're now at a point in which I think more people have been hired since the merger than came with either organization. But a lot of that's wrapped up in our brand, and a lot of that is wrapped up in the fact that we have been intentional in the way that we have tried to promulgate our brand across the state of Connecticut. We're not vying for media attention with between two entities anymore. We're one organization, and we're doing what we can to basically, to help the state of Connecticut. Our staff has been tremendous in terms of how they've come together. Our volunteers have been tremendous, and I do believe, and if you talk to a lot of our pantries, the level of service that we're able to give people is a lot better than what it was as two separate entities. From a financial standpoint, we've been able to save about $1.8 million a year. Wow. From having by combining the two entities. And we're not a for-profit. Our board of directors doesn't make any money. They're not getting dividends. It's not going to our stockholders. The $1.8 million that we're saving gets invested directly back into the state of Connecticut and into the work that we do.
Do you have any plans of sort of expanding, putting more, however it works, getting more trucks?
Physically, we need to physically expand. We definitely know that. As time goes on, we'll probably need more trucks. We're at 21 now. We know that we'll need some more as time goes on. But one of the things we're looking at now is, we've got this. We have the main headquarters in Wallingford and 2 different satellites. Do we keep those 2 satellites forever? Can we run everything just out of the Wallingford warehouse? What's the most efficient way of doing things? We just received a $2 million grant from Congresswoman DeLauro and the U.S. Congress to double the size of our freezer and refrigerator space in Wallingford. So in the next couple of years, we already know we're going to be engaging in that major construction project. What we're looking at now is, while we do that, are there other pieces of the warehouse that we need to expand? So we know we're going to need a bigger physical footprint over the next couple of years. The building we're in was only built for, the old Connecticut Food Bank for half of the state of Connecticut. So we know we're going to need some expansion. And 10 years from now, who knows? I mean, maybe we need more satellites across the state of Connecticut. The good thing about Connecticut is, we are very compact in terms of where we are. I talked to my colleagues from Texas or Montana. I mean, they're sending their trucks out for a week at a time because they just, because you go to, talk about Alaska, they're delivering food via plane at times. One thing we do have here in Connecticut is we do have road access to every corner of Connecticut. As Connecticut people, we love to complain about how, it's not easy to get to Torrington and it's not easy to get up to Willimantic, and it's, but that's just us being crotchety New Englanders. Yeah. You can access every bit of the state via land.
Do you have, you mentioned you talked to different food banks around the country. Is there any sort of like centralized, or how different, like you said, the Connecticut Grocers, I'm sort of like a National Grocers Association. Is there like a National Food Bank Association type thing that you're part of?
Feeding America. Feeding America. So tell me about,
you mentioned that a few times.
Feeding America is the it's more than just a trade association, but I mean it is the national organization of food banks, made up of 199 food banks across the United States. We all subscribe to the same health standards, the same safety standards. We all have the same national relationships with some donors and some food donors and monetary donors. Feeding America, in the last 2 or 3 years, Feeding America has become the largest charity in the United States, the largest nonprofit. It has eclipsed the Red Cross and United Way, and is now the largest nonprofit in the United States. So there's a lot of collaboration. We don't do what we do in a vacuum. I serve on Feeding America's National Council. We just had a meeting last week in Cincinnati in which we're going around the table talking about, hey, what's up, what's down, what's working, what's not working. We are definitely a force to be reckoned with on Capitol Hill down in D.C. because we lobby as one organization, as one national group on things like SNAP and TFAP and senior food boxes and things like that. But there's also a sharing of best practices. And what I love about being a part of the network is you've always got people that, there's always somebody there that you can borrow an idea from. None of us we're not proprietary over any of our ideas. We love sharing ideas with one another. For example, after we merged, there were 2 food banks in Minnesota that were interested in merging, and we talked with them. They talked with us. We talked with their board chairs. They said, hey, you already did it. What can we learn from how you did it? And they're a year into a successful merger right now.
That's great.
They didn't have to reinvent the wheel because we were able to help them. With that. So it's a very collaborative network, and it's good to be a part of a national network like that.
You mentioned other organizations like Red Cross, maybe you mentioned things like that. So I'm kind of a believer in, like, if healthcare, that's a whole different topic. Healthcare is in sort of this whatever thing with healthcare where I think it could be better. Yeah. But I think part of that making healthcare better is starting at the beginning of, instead of maybe somebody gets sick and giving them medicines and stuff. Let's figure out a way to give them maybe better food to eat, because I think that's a big thing. Do you subscribe to that? Is that something you talk to the federal government about? Like, we really need to get healthier food into the individuals that get food from us? Yes,
absolutely. There's a whole hunger to health, or a food is medicine movement that's going on in the country, and I think a lot of private insurers, but also healthcare providers, have finally recognized that, wait a second, instead of ending up having to pay on the back end for drugs and procedures and things like that, prescription drugs and expensive procedures, what if we tried getting people to eat right all along? So there is definitely a dialogue on that at both the state level and at the federal level. I do think I think some of the things that you're seeing too are that a lot of food banks across the country, including ours, are partnering with local hospitals and healthcare providers. For example, we've had a pantry at St. Francis, the Joan Dauber Food Pantry, for more than 10 years. Okay. They were one of the first to come up with a food pantry. Hartford Hospital has a food pharmacy that we partner with. FOODFARMACY. Okay. So, basically you can prescribe, patients, food from the food pantry. And all it is it's a food pantry. But again, 15 years ago, people would have said, oh, you're crazy to open up a food pantry in a hospital. Why would you do that? They do one thing, you do something else. We've all recognized that it's all interrelated.
It sure is.
So we have opened a number of them at in hospital settings, healthcare settings, and also colleges and universities. 10, 15 years ago, that would have been crazy, and now we've recognized that college kids they need that help as well.
I was I graduated from Southern Connecticut State, and
I just dropped my daughter off there for a freshman year.
Oh, right on! Congrats
on Saturday. So
I went back for a tour. I've been back there
it's quite the campus.
It's quite the campus.
Quite the campus.
It's been maybe close to 30 years since I've been back on that campus. Yeah. Anyway, so I was at a networking event, and I met one of the admissions fellows there, and we set up a tour. So I was just there the other week. Checking it out.
We have a food pantry there.
Yeah, and so, but that's what I'm getting to. He said there's a food pantry for students. We provide food
to them.
They
run it. I mean, they run it. Absolutely. A lot of the 4-year colleges, a lot of the community colleges. Goodwin University was the first in the state to have a food pantry, and 2 years ago, we finally we opened the Husky Harvest food pantries with UConn. There's one on all 7 of the UConn campuses. There is a Husky Harvest food pantry that we supply the majority of food for, including the law school and including the medical school. And people are like, well, wait a second, you think about it. They're hurting too. I mean, these are people on fixed. They may have no income while they're in school. So, yes, those are 15 years ago. You never would have seen that, and now I know exactly where the one is on Southern because I just turned around there in the parking lot the other day because I went the wrong way finding my daughter's dorm. So
no, quite a school. They've made some significant changes.
Yeah,
it's wonderful. Yeah, but I was quite surprised to see that, but also quite happy. Yep. I think that's terrific because these kids, they need to concentrate on their studies and not
have to worry about where their next meal is coming
from. Get food,
And not everybody, that's the other thing people don't realize about college students. Everybody, they're all on a meal plan. They are not all on a meal plan, especially a school like Southern where there's a significant number of commuters. All right, if you're living on campus, you're probably on a meal plan. If you're a commuter, you're not. I mean, you're on your own. Yep. So it's reality.
Tell me about some things coming up. Fundraising events, any kind of annual things you have coming on?
Absolutely. Well, we're heading into the fall. September is Hunger Action Month, the month of the year in which all across the country we, everybody talks about and raises awareness of hunger and the effects of hunger on different communities. Then we roll into the fall, and it's Thanksgiving time. Probably our busiest time of the year. Not the time of the year. The summer is when the food insecurity is at its worst, but we are probably busiest in November, December, just because the amount of donations that we get during the holidays, far exceed any other time of year. Our goal again this Thanksgiving is going to be to collect and distribute 50,000 Thanksgiving meals. Wow. It's crazy. A lot. It's a big goal. The people of Connecticut have never let us down. We spend several weeks in November lugging frozen turkeys around. I always say by the time I get to Thanksgiving Day, just give me a ham to eat because I've been around so many turkeys. But it's a big undertaking. But it's really one of those things we all come together as a state and do. So that's definitely coming up as well. And then every spring we have our Walk Against Hunger at Duncan Park, home of the Yard Goats. Yep. It's a statewide walk. And it benefits not only us but our pantries across the entire state. Last year we raised about $500,000. Wow. In October, at Manchester Community College, we do have our annual Empty Bowls fundraiser, which is great. We raise about $40,000 a year, and it's all-you-can-eat soup from local restaurants and from the culinary students at Manchester. And it's a great way to kind of kick off the fall season. So. So we're always doing something. We're always out there doing something.
When you first got here, we talked about summer being not the busiest, but the people are in need most. Yep. Why is that? Why is it in the summertime and not like at a holiday?
Because kids are out of school.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's the number one factor. Kids are out of school. You have kids getting 1, maybe 2, in some cases 3 meals a day at their school. Summer comes. That immediately ends, and so now you have, their families are struggling to figure out, where they get their meal from. So it is an interesting thing. The winter, the holiday months are when people think about us the most. We're basically the type of business that we have to raise enough money during the holidays to be able to pay for our most expensive time of the year, which is really June, July, August.
Do you partner with schools at all? Do you have any relationships?
Absolutely, we have relationship with municipalities, with schools. There are some school districts that have school pantries in their local schools. We definitely, around summer meals in particular, the State Department of Education has a great summer meals program that we will partner with local schools on in order to get the word out and let kids know where they can get free meals during the summer. So. Cool. We partner with just about everybody.
If somebody wanted to reach out to you, donation, find out about an event, how would that happen?
ctfoodshare.org is the best. It's a brand new website. It's a great looking website. It's definitely the best place that people can go in order to find out information. You can make a donation. You could sign up to volunteer. You could find out where our services are. If you need our services, you can go to ctfoodshare.org and find out where our mobile sites are, which pantries are open. You could also call 211. We update them every day in terms of what's open and what's not. And if you're interested in signing up for SNAP, you can call 860-856-HELP. And that is our SNAP hotline, and we can help you sign up for SNAP. But you go to ctfoodshare.org. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of us, and we appreciate everything that people do for us.
Awesome. How long have you been with Connecticut Foodshare?
7 years. 7 years.
Did you start at the food?
I was at I was at Foodshare, and now and then.
You were at Foodshare.
I was at Foodshare in the northern part of the state. Yes.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's right. Yeah. Okay, now I remember. Yeah, that's so. Yeah, Al introduced me to, and it was still Foodshare.
Yep.
That's how it all. Because I was thinking.
I just celebrated my 7 year. Monica and I have both been there for 7 years.
Yeah,
so
congrats.
It's been
awesome.
a great. It's been a great run so far, and we're not going anywhere.
That's awesome. Really, really good. I want to back up just a little bit and talk about this event coming up these couple of months.
Yeah.
That's raising money specifically for you guys. You're partnering with Blueback Health, and you're partnering with CBIA.
Absolutely.
So,
Bluebackhealth.com.
Yeah.
You could also go to our website, or you could also make a donation to our site from bluebackhealth.com. All these chambers of commerce are trying to, the goal is to do 5,000 steps a day for each of the next 61 days through the end of October. And the proceeds from the challenge, along with 100% of the donations that people make, will go directly to Connecticut Foodshare. So very appreciative of the 5th annual Chamber Wellness Challenge. So we're ready to roll. As a member of the West Hartford Chamber Board of Directors, obviously I'm biased, but go Team West Hartford. But we're all winners.
I think West Hartford came in second last year.
I know we're aware of that.
And who is it? Who's actually Old Saybrook, one of my Shoreline partners here. I'm not a member of the Shoreline Chamber, but they came in first.
We're aware the West Hartford Chamber. They're hyper competitive, but it's great because it's all for charity, and very appreciative to Blueback Health and CBIA and all 20 chambers that are participating. We're really appreciative.
Is there any closing thoughts you want to talk to me? Anything we didn't touch on? I have all this paperwork that Monica was.
We talked about it.
I think I looked at it. I think we got it all.
I think we talked about a lot of different things. I appreciate you just having us on and spending some time with us. The biggest thing is letting people know what we do and letting people know where our services are located. And anything that raises awareness, I think, is important. And the one takeaway I want people to have is that even though we're a wealthy state, there is at least one family in each of the 169 towns of Connecticut that are food insecure. There is no corner of the state that is immune to this, and we're out there every day doing what we can for the entire state of Connecticut.
Do you take donations? Sorry, did you take? If somebody shows up with a bag full of groceries, obviously you'll take
Absolutely.
that.
You can drop those off at our headquarters. You could drop, but you want to donate food product, you're better off donating to your local
because that's
pantry.
Where it's going to go anyway.
That's where it's going to go anyway. If you want to donate monetary donations, donate it to Connecticut Foodshare because we're able to buy more because our purchasing power, we're buying by the truckload.
And what kind of food are you looking for specifically? Is there a specific food?
Non-perishables are usually the
noodles
best.
and
noodles, peanut butter, soup, tuna, those types of things. Those are what local pantries are almost always looking for. You could also almost always call your local pantry and say, what do you need more of right now? And they will tell you. I live in West Hartford. They often say the West Hartford Town Pantry needs peanut butter. The West Hartford Town Pantry needs tuna fish. So they're always appreciative.
And try to make sure that if you're donating something, make sure it's relatively healthy.
Absolutely, yes.
You're not looking for junk food.
100. Don't go out and buy a bunch of I don't want to despair, a bunch of Lucky Charms or something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with Lucky Charms.
But it's better to get some nourishing food into folks. Listen, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
For coming by.
Thanks
Really
for
appreciate you making
us.
the trip. I know you had to make a little bit of a drive today.
Beautiful drive.
And I guess that's it. So we are good.
All right.
Thanks for coming by,
Dave.
Jason. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.